Hello, let's talk about all of my favourite books of 2025. Hello, I'm Zoe. Welcome back to my booktube channel. It is finally time to fully wrap up 2025 and talk about all of my favourite reads. I'm going to split this video up into kind of two sections. So in the first half of the video, I'm going to talk about each of my favourite books from each month of last year. And then the second half of the video is going to be me talking about them in kind of categories, like award style, like best fantasy, best romance, best translated fiction. I just thought this would be a nice way to break it up depending on what you're interested in. Let's not linger any longer. Let's get straight into the books. I can't believe I don't actually have a physical copy of this. My favourite book I read in January was The Favourites by Lane Fargo. For each of these books, I'm just going to give a really brief idea of what it's about. I'm not going to go into detail. The Favourites by Lane Fargo is a wild ride of a book. It's sort of romance, sort of contemporary, and it's set up in kind of documentary style where you follow two characters who are professional ice skaters and they're very tumultuous, complex, toxic, very, very toxic relationship and professional dynamic. You're getting their insights in real time, but then also documentary style, the people that were around them, friends, family, fellow skaters, nemesis in some cases, took me by complete surprise. It reminded me why I don't watch a lot of reality TV because I was so invested. Could not put it down. Fantastic start to the year. In February, my favourite book was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I think about this book all the time. It's about 39 women locked underground, very little memory of how they ended up there. They're guarded by men, no idea what's going on in the outside world. And one day the men disappear and the gates are open and the women find themselves free. This is a haunting read that does not give you all the answers that you're looking for, but is a really great insight into community and womanhood and a really bleak dystopian landscape that has really stuck with me. I would definitely recommend this book. In March, my favourite book was Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. This is the final book in the Fallen Gods series. God Killer is the entire reason I do this. I started my Bookstagram account with a post about God Killer. Getting the proof of this final book felt really full circle for me. This series follows Kisan, who is a god killer. Gods are outlawed. The worship of the gods is outlawed. We also follow a knight turned baker who used to serve the king and now he just wants a normal life. The final character is a young girl called Inara, who is, for unbeknown reasons, bound to a tiny god of white lies. The three of them end up on a journey together through various circumstances, and this trilogy is immaculate. It is a stunning series. This final installment did not disappoint whatsoever. I am so excited for Hannah Kaner's new release this year. I can't wait. April's favourite was The River Has Roots by Amal El-Matar. This is so gorgeous. This is a teeny tiny book full of folklore and it's a story about sisters. The writing, the prose is so beautiful. I think I did talk about this in my short books to read video, so I'll have that linked, and I'm really excited to read more from this author. A glorious time. I really enjoyed this. When I think back to the month of May, it was probably my most bizarre reading month because nothing particularly stuck out. I was probably in a massive slump, to be honest, so I decided to pick up a memoir series. This is the second installment. This was my favourite. I did give this 4.5 or 5 stars, I think. This is My Gently Raised Beast, which is a manhwa, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like a manga read the sort of Western way, whereas manga, we read it in reverse. They are in full colour. It's silly, it's cutesy, it's fun. I enjoyed it, particularly in the moment. I really needed a bit of a pick-me-up, and the second volume was my favourite, so this was my favourite book of the month. June's favourite was You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat. This I read in one sitting. I absolutely devoured it. This book follows an unnamed narrator who is Palestinian-American, and she is navigating queerness, homophobia, a love addiction, which was so interesting to read about. I really want to reread this because I just remembered just my jaw dropped the entire time I was reading. The protagonist is a very complex person, not particularly likable, to be honest, a lot of the time, but I was really intrigued by her and the way that she was able to self-sabotage at every corner. Definitely one to have a look at if that sounds interesting. In July, I decided to reread one of my favourites, which is Legends and Lattes, and this ended up being my favourite book of the month. I actually did the audio this time. It was available through my library, and I would really recommend the audiobooks for this. This book was narrated by the author, which I really, really enjoyed. I also really loved the second book, and the third book's out now as well, which I need to get to soon. But yeah, Legends and Lattes was my favourite pick for July. August's favourite will be of no surprise to anybody who knew what I was reading that month. It's the Justice of Kings trilogy. I can't pick between them. I won't pick between them. This series completely took over me for like a week and a half of my life. I read them back to back. Absolutely phenomenal series following a justice called Sir Conrad von Volt. First book is like a murder mystery type story. This is dark fantasy with elements of horror. Really, really fantastic story told from the perspective of the justice's assistant, apprentice. I can't remember which one she is now. The words escaped me. She's fantastic. He's an interesting character, a brilliant trilogy. Cannot believe the span of it and where the story takes us. I can't pick between them. You won't make me. And again, surprise to absolutely nobody, that September's favourite was Grave Empire by Richard Swan. This is set a couple of hundred years after the events of the Justice of Kings. It's another darker fantasy, elements of horror. I probably need to stop talking about Richard Swan at this point, but I can't. I am obsessed with these books. A firm favourite, and this edition from the Broken Binding is unreal. October's book was an easy pick for me. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. Toxic lesbian vampires. Stunning, gorgeous, toxic, complex, beautiful relationships, horrible relationships, everything you could want, and a really gorgeous take on vampirism that I really, really enjoyed. You follow different women across time and how their lives are entwined and often thrown off course by vampirism. This was stunning. Loved it. November's favourite was actually one of my shorter reads of this year. It's The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. I had a great time with this. This is a sci-fi novel and you follow humanity as they essentially colonise a planet with a once very peaceful nation of aliens, and you see the consequences of that, of completely careless and reckless and destructive and violent colonisation, and you see the impact that that has on the native community. And it was just beautiful, and for a book this short, I cannot fathom the depth of this story. It's gorgeous. You should read it. And lastly, December's favourite, which will be a surprise to absolutely nobody, Empire of the Dawn by J. Christoph. I did talk about this a little bit more in depth in my December reading wrap-up, but this was everything I hoped for and more. I stared at a wall for 20 minutes after finishing. It was gorgeous. I know the ending's divisive, but it worked for me. A stunning way to like sort of seal off the year. I did read one book after this, but this was just made me cry so hard I couldn't see. Chef's Kiss, stunning. First part of this video done. That's the easy bit done. So I've split them up into different categories. Some of the books will be duplicates, and that's fine, but I just want to highlight some of these books and also highlight some of the books that maybe weren't the favourite of the month, but have really stuck with me for various reasons. So let's get into my not really, but kind of book awards. I'm going to start with the easiest one, and that's favourite fantasy book of the year. It's Grave Empire by Richard Swan, because of course it is. What I have really enjoyed about Richard Swan's works, full stop, this year, but particularly with this book, is the depth and detail of the world. The political structures are fantastic. The character work is absolutely spectacular. The fights, the battles, the magic and the lore around the magic is really rich and really interesting, particularly as it transformed into this series from where we left it in the Justice of Kings. I was just blown away by it, and I'm so glad that I took the time to read the other trilogy first, because it just really added to the experience of this book. I will not know peace until I have Steel Gods in my hands. This really blew me away this year. Next up is my favourite fantasy series of the year. I am going to do some honourable mentions first. Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I'm so glad I finally got to this. This is a really gorgeous urban fantasy series following warring families, and particularly one family. Jade is part of their magic system. This is a really complex and sometimes toxic family with really complicated dynamics, and the span of this series is quite massive, to be honest. You follow some of the characters from when they're young men and women to like older men and women, their families and their relationship, the rivalries and the gang wars. It was a really solid series. I had a really good time with it. Not perfect, but definitely worth a mention if you were on the fence about reading it. I definitely would recommend it. I don't usually like urban fantasy, but this has made me think that I could probably try some more, and I'm really looking forward to Fonda Lee's new book this year as well, which is a sci-fi, I believe. Very exciting. The other honourable mention comes back to Faithbreaker, so the Fallen God series. So you have Godkiller, Sunbringer, and then Faithbreaker is the final book that came out this year. As I was saying before, the series as a whole is really strong. Journey that these characters go on, and the lore and the world building and around the gods particularly was really interesting. A very strong series. This to me was a straight 5-star series. Just didn't quite get the top spot for this year. Could talk endlessly about these books, to be honest. I also reread Godkiller, Sunbringer, and Faithbreaker, so I feel like I can say that gets an honourable mention for this year, because I did technically read them all this year. I just reread some of them. Those are my couple of honourable mentions. My series of the year is Empire of the Wolf by Richard Swan. I don't need to repeat myself. It's stunning. Please read this series. I'm really excited for everything Richard Swan is throwing at us in 2026. I think we've got 2 releases announced so far, I think. Favourite fantasy series of this year, nobody is surprised. Best sci-fi, again, pretty obvious, was The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. It was stunning. It's really reignited my desire to read more sci-fi. I will give overall just an honourable mention to Adrian Tchaikovsky this year. I read Shroud at the end of 2024, like my last read, and then at the beginning of 2025, I listened to a load of his books and really, really enjoyed them. My dad is now an Adrian Tchaikovsky stan. He's obsessed. He's played a big part in our reading journeys this year, so I'll put on screen some of the books I have read. But yeah, really enjoyed Adrian Tchaikovsky's books this year. Huge fan. Favourite romantasy. This was actually a really easy one to pick because I've read very little romantasy this year. The one that really stuck out to me was The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. This was originally sent to me by the publisher, so thank you very much to Galance. This is a Viking romantasy, and I feel like that's all I really need to say, to be honest. I loved this. I did not really anticipate where the ending was going, even though I feel like I should have. I feel like that's so obvious, but in the moment, I genuinely didn't. I haven't read the second book yet, which feels criminal given how much I enjoyed this, but I am really looking forward to hopefully reading that soon this year. I really enjoyed the setting and the journey that they're on. They're literally on a journey on the Road of Bones. I really enjoyed that, and kind of the secrets between the characters and things. I remember being a really big fan. The romance was great. I was quite a fan of where the romance left off, to be honest, because that's going to be interesting. Great vibes. Favourite romantasy. I'm really hoping that this year will be a better year for me in romantasy. I do have some more books on my shelves now, so I'm hopeful that I will, fall back in love with a genre that was really a big part of why I got back into reading in the first place. So yeah, Road of Bones, Demi Winters, best romantasy for me of this year. Best translated fiction. I read a lot of translated fiction and have done over the years. I didn't realise how little I'd read this year. I've read some, but none of them have really massively stood out to me as favourites. But then I remembered that I Who Have Never Known Men is translated. It's translated from French. Already talked about this in this video. This is absolutely gorgeous. I think this will be a book that stands the test of time. It has certainly haunted my life since reading it, and I think it will haunt many others. The writing is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Favourite novella. I do enjoy a short story. I haven't read a whole lot of novellas this year, that at least not ones that I super enjoyed. My favourite one was actually my last book of 2025. It was The Scour by Richard Swan. I know this is not an ad for Richard Swan, to be perfectly clear. The Scour was absolutely stunning. It's the prequel novella to the Empire of the Wolf trilogy, following the Justice Sir Conrad von Volt in his early mid-20s-ish. It's kind of similar to The Justice of Kings, which is the first book, where there's that mystery element and it's dark and it's a bit horrifying. It was really, really good for 150 pages. Really enjoyed that. I will give an honourable mention, though, to a book I read right at the beginning of the year, which is In the Shadow of Their Dying. This is grimdark to a T. Absolutely grim, gruesome, horrible, but in a really great way. I did mention this in my short books video as well, so there's more information about this book there, but just an honourable mention because this was absolutely spectacular as well. But The Scour did take the #1 spot for novella for this year. This is books that altered my brain chemistry, and a lot of the books on this list already did that, but these are just 2 that didn't quite make favourite book of the month, but are definitely stuck with me in a way that is worth mention, I think. The first book is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This was recommended to me by one of my good friends, and she couldn't believe that I'd not read it, and I can see why, because this is everything that I love in a book and more. I honestly struggle to talk about this book because I don't quite know how to sell it to you, to be honest. But essentially, this is set in Piranesi's house, which has endless corridors and an actual ocean inside with tides and currents and all these different statues and really interesting things. It's essentially a labyrinth. Piranesi believes himself to be the only person that lives there, but then there is another person called the Other who visits him twice a week, and he asks for Piranesi's help with this great secret, this knowledge that he's in search of. Honestly, I think that's all you need to know. I read this in one sitting. It's nice and short, and it absolutely blew my mind. The writing is absolutely gorgeous. It just really it sort of tickled my brain in a way that just, it really fulfilled a gap in what I'd been reading. I don't really know how to articulate that properly, but I would just say give this a try. I'm really looking forward to reading more from Susanna Clarke this year. I really want to read is it Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell? I really want to read that this year. It's huge, but I really want to try that. Another book that made it into my short books to read video, This Is How You Lose the Time War. Again, read this in one sitting. Gorgeous and short. I, again, was blown away by this book. If you don't know anything about this, it's kind of sci-fi. I'd say it's somewhere between sci-fi, dystopia and lit fic. You have 2 enemy agents that are fighting in a time war who begin to kind of send each other letters as taunts and boasts about battle. but then begin to get to know each other and fall in love. It was absolutely spectacular and heartbreaking as well. It's forbidden, it's impossible, a truly impossible love. I said this in my short books video, you've all been after yearning, bring back yearning. It was here all along. This is the blueprint, or the blue and red print, if you will, for yearning. I cannot believe I read this in public because I was fighting for my life to not cry. Both absolutely astonishing authors, and I did go on to read more from Amala Matar last year. I know the writing's not going to be for everyone, but it was for me, and it was stunning, and it broke my brain. Okay, favourite non-fiction. I am quite pleased with how much non-fiction I read this year. There's always room for more. I've picked 3 books to talk to you about because I think they're all worthy of a mention. First up is Unbound by Tarana Burke. This is about the founding of the Me Too movement and Tarana Burke's part in that. My knowledge of the Me Too movement was it starting on Twitter, and it is evident from her book that was not the case. This did start with Tarana Burke and her community. With a book like this, definitely check you're in the right mindset for it, but I really do think this is essential reading, and the author tells their story in a really powerful, emotive way, but also really does get across the importance of movements like this and why it's still important today, and also her view on how the movement went viral as well, which was really interesting. Super powerful, would definitely recommend. I'm going to recommend this author full stop, but particularly The Service Berry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is all about an economy of gifts and abundance. It's essentially sort of de-influencing us from capitalism and from overconsumption and from FOMO and all of these things that I personally am trying to tackle a little bit this year. I read this at absolutely the time I needed it last year. It's really gorgeous. Again, I think I mentioned this in my short books video. Kimmerer's writing is really beautiful anyway. What I particularly enjoyed about this, and I have done with Kimmerer's other books as well, looking at the relationships that exist within nature and how we can learn from nature. So she talks a lot about the service berry and how, because of its abundance and what it gives to its environment, it gets back. I feel like a lot of us this year are kind of looking to sort of slow down and be more mindful of our consumption. I think this is a great book to help with that. Lastly, for non-fiction is a history book, and it really reawoke my love for history, is The Wager by David Gran. This follows the events leading up to and following on from a shipwreck of a British vessel. Basically, the different accounts of what happens. I talked about this in one of my monthly wrap-ups. I will find which one and link it for you. Really, really interesting. I think the author did a really great job of piecing together the different points of view, I guess, from different documentation and journals. Girlies, let this be a lesson that journals are important. Without journals and innermost thoughts on paper and the formal documents, you know, literally the receipts, this book would not exist. We would not know what actually happened to the wager. But it was really fantastic. The audiobook as well was really, really good. It made it almost cinematic in the reading experience. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, the history book's back this year for me because this one really sparked that love for me again. Okay, last few categories. This one is favourite audiobook. This is tricky because I've listened to a lot of audiobooks this year and I can't actually pick one. I'm going to pick a series, which again probably won't surprise people. It's the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I read the ebook of the first book, and seeing people say how good the audiobooks were, I did use the last of my credits to get as up to date as I could with the audiobooks for this, and I have enjoyed every single one of them. The performance on these audiobooks is spectacular. I have had such a great time listening to them because of the audiobooks. I think the stories themselves are fantastic. There is something about the type of story this is, in that it's a lit RPG where the audio just lends itself to such a better experience, in my opinion. And it's just been an absolute blast. I've listened to 5 of the books, I believe. I think that's where I'm up to now. The audio performances have been consistently fantastic. I think I probably rated them slightly higher than I might have done if I was reading them physically because of how good the audiobooks have been. And I cannot wait to continue the series. I do wish they weren't exclusive to a certain platform, but that is a different conversation. This category feels so random, but I feel I have to talk about this book in some capacity because it was such a bizarre one. This is for 7 Recipes for Revolution. This is sold as Attack on Titan meets The Bear, which if you've watched either of them just sounds bonkers, and it's 100% accurate. This is Attack on Titan meets The Bear, and I had a really good time with this. It wasn't perfect. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I did have a great time. I just had to mention this book because what a bizarre comp. Attack on Titan and The Bear, but it's so right. You can kind of see a bit of the Attack on Titan-ness there. So Paprik is a butcher who carves slabs of meat from these massive monsters on the front there. Recipes are magic, essentially, like different concoctions of food give you different powers and things. He finds some spices that have unforeseen and problematic side effects for him, and that's where I'll leave it. Most bizarre but accurate comp of the year. I think that is about everything for my favourite books of the year. If I had to pick a top 3, as I'm sat here right now, let me get them. This Is How You Lose the Time War, Empire of the Dawn. Brave Empire does take the #1 spot, in a surprise to nobody. If you have stayed all the way to the end, thank you so, so much. Please do let me know in the comments what your favourite book was in 2025. If you did enjoy this video, please do remember to like and subscribe. I will also be doing some short form content on these books, so make sure to follow me over on my Instagram and my TikTok. They are always linked down below for you. 2025 done, time to start 2026. Start it off right with some good reads. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy reading. Bye. And they're very tumultuous, complex, toxic.